Well, if you have a friend that is struggling with mental illness, in terms of how you view the normal population, what are a couple ways that you can be supportive to that person that you feel like a lot of people miss? I caught you talking about using reflective language, for instance, instead of invalidating somebody's feelings. That seemed like a really helpful tip. Do you have any other like things like that where it's like when somebody hears this from a mentally ill person, most people do this, but you should actually do that? Are there any things like that that you know of offhand?
Yeah, so I think the first is don't underestimate your impact. So this is a very, very common mistake that humans make. So like,
Hmm.
let's say you invite a friend to a party and they say, no, I don't, no, thank you.
Hmm.
And then you invite them again and they say, no, thank you again. And you invite them a third time and they say, no, thank you. You
Hmm.
assume that they don't want to be invited, right? But the
Hmm.
truth is that your invitation in and of itself can mean a lot. Like they can have social anxiety or they can be busy and they can feel like, oh, it's like really nice that he keeps inviting me, even though I can't go. And for friends who are struggling with mental illness, you can even like kind of asking them like, hey, is there some way that I can support you? And they say, no, I'm fine. And then you ask again, is there some way I can support you? And they say, no, I'm fine.
Hmm.
The fact that you're asking, even though you don't see it helping, doesn't mean that it isn't incredibly helpful. So I think the biggest mistake that people tend to make is they undervalue their own contribution to a relationship because they don't see a change in the relationship because of their efforts. But especially with mental illness, if you're doing something and they don't seem to be changing at all, you could actually be what's keeping them afloat. Because generally speaking, mental illness has a downward trend. So even if you're like, hey man, do you want to talk every now and then? And they seem to be doing like the same level of depression,
Hmm.
I mean, generally speaking, you're probably grossly underestimating how helpful you actually are to that person.
Okay.
So I'd say just, do what you think is right as a friend and don't get biased by the perception that it's not working,
Gotcha.
which is bizarre, right? By the perception that it isn't working because it seems like it's not working. So why would you continue doing it? But it has immense value.
Gotcha. Because there's some internal improvement that's happening. There's an intervention there that feels good, even if you don't see like an external change in behavior, basically.
Exactly. Even though they never come to your party,
Hmm.
you make them feel wanted and cared for, which is hard to see. And it's also hard for them to express.
Hmm.
And this is also where you can just kind of check in with them. Hey, I keep on asking you if you want to come to the parties or not. I'm not sure if you're busy or what. Like, do you want me to keep inviting you? Just ask them. They'll be
Gotcha.
like, yeah, like, please let me know when you have a party.
Okay. How do you determine? Oof. One of the most frustrating parts about mental stuff is that you can't force people, obviously, to do things. They have to make the choices on their own. What level of intervention, I guess, all right, let's say that you have a friend. I'll use an example. So you have a friend with like really big social anxiety, right? And you know that they've been like they are trying to like see more people, like in larger groups of friends or whatever. How do like is should you make some positive effort to like kind of push them like more, or do you leave that entirely in their court and you just don't ever push at all? Or like say you have a friend with depression or whatever. I know, like for instance, like Reckful would stay in bed sometimes for months because he was so depressed and he would never get out. Like, do you ever like show up at that person's house and it's like, get up, we're going outside, like come on? Like, do you think that those types of interventions are responsible, or do you think that you're depriving the other person of their own choices too much? Or How do you view stuff like that? Like when can you make a determination, as we're not professionals, for when like you like should intervene a little bit more to help somebody that's kind of struggling with that kind of stuff?
What do you think? What's your compass?
um I guess the way that I view it is that if I feel like somebody is engaging in a behavior that seems to me to just be incredibly destructive and or self-destructive, I guess, and it doesn't seem like there is any benefit for them to continue to pursue that behavior, and if I have evidence in the past that intervening seems to have positive impacts. So, for instance, I know that sometimes people will be depressed; they don't want to come out, like blah, blah. But every time you get them out, they seem to have a really good experience, and they'll even admit as much. That like usually those are the types of interventions I would try to push for because I know that if I can at least get them to move a little bit, that they'll start to feel better for having moved. Yeah.
Sounds like a great answer to me.
Okay.
Right. So
Okay.
I think that this is where this also leads to a lot of confusion. I think that sometimes we forget that mental health is more than treatment.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, it's so much more than treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And friendship is one of the best things that you can do for someone with mental health. Right? Like you can look at studies that show, I mean, so you can look at studies with like pets, and like
Mm-hmm.
pets improve cardiovascular health, they improve mental health. It's not a treatment, it's not medicine, but it can still help immensely. And so I think you should think about what your dharma or duty as a friend is.
Mm-hmm.
And that dharma is going to be different from the dharma of a mental health professional. Because it is grossly inappropriate for me to show up at my patient's door. Right? It's like, what if they just like, are they depressed or do they think I'm a fucking asshole and just stopped taking my calls and responding
Yeah.
to my emails? So I think you should do your duty as a friend. And if that means showing up and crossing certain boundaries that maybe a mental health professional can't cross,
Mm-hmm.
because then that's okay. I mean, I think that that's what friends are for, right?
Okay.
And I think the main thing to think about there is, just to really be very careful about examining your own feelings and also to check in with them
Mm-hmm.
about, like, I think friends need to learn, like, just in general, as a society, we need to learn to have like more conversations about, the meta level of our relationship. So,
Yeah, I noticed that we rely a lot on context clues or on body language sometimes when like people we because of all the sexual assault allegations we went over a lot of this and the answer that I always give for 99% of like confusion and I'm sure everybody talking about relationships same thing is like just have a conversation like just talk about this like have it like why would you try to guess like don't try to figure out like how they're feeling or like just talk about it like have a conversation is the easiest way to elucidate like the issues and it seems like so many people don't do that have any of those meta level conversations about any of their relationships
yeah,
sexual or non-sexual or friendships anything. Yeah.
yeah, we just don't talk about it.
Hmm.
What's our relationship?
You and me.
Mhm.
Quasi friendly, quasi professional. I
Great.
guess we talk on stream. Yeah, I enjoy talking to you. Yeah.
Yeah, same.
Hmm. Okay.
And so I think of us as colleagues on the road to becoming friends.
Okay. You play Dota though, not League, right?
Yeah, so,
Significant road bump, but
can't have everything.
yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to think of.
Have you played Dota?
I, are you? Do you know the sunken cost rule?
Yeah,
Yeah, some
fair
people call
enough.
it a fallacy. It's not a fallacy, okay? I've sunk too much time into League to ever learn another game. I can't
Yeah,
switch now. Even if switching at this point in my life would produce better outcomes for me, just can't.
that's
Okay, I'm
uh,
dug into League. I'm sorry.
you won't catch me saying this anywhere else, Destiny, but it's not, it seems to me like they're both great games. And it's just,
Really?
yeah.
Oh man, I have such a my view of humanity worsens every time I get into a new lobby. But okay, I admire your
New lobby and LOL.
yes, a
No,
new
I mean
game.
that I'll agree with. I think the fact that your view of humanity, but that has nothing to do with the game. That has to do with the players.
Oh, I mean the game itself is okay. The game itself is pretty good. But
It's a
unfortunately,
good
you
game,
have to
man.
do it 9 other people, God willing, alongside you, going after hopefully the same goals. But
Well, I mean, hopefully 5 of them are not going after the same goal as you.
yeah, oh yeah, sure, yeah.
But
Um, what is your end goal with your? You talk a lot about the organization that you kind of have with all the people that you're training up to be counselors, or like what
Coaches.
capacity do you, coaches? Okay, coaches. What capacity do you want that organization to serve in the future? Like, what's your end goal with that? Like
So
realistic end goal and then like dream end goal, I guess.
So it's interesting. So the short answer is I don't have an end goal because this thing was never conceived to go to a particular place.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the first question you asked me is like, what did you expect from Twitch and have you been surprised? And the
Mm-hmm.
answer is I expected I don't even remember what I expected, but the short answer was not much and I've been very surprised.
Mm-hmm.
So it's weird like cuz I mean every step of the way has been in trying to figure out like what is the next step I need to take. It's really not about an end goal. And the reason we started the coaching program is because I got thousands of requests per month for people like, "Hey, can I talk to Dr. K?"
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll pay you any amount of money for just 1 hour of your time.
Mm-hmm.
And as lucrative as that may be, I didn't think I could actually help people. So then the question becomes, so one of my friends, I was talking to one of my colleagues who's also a psychiatrist, and she was saying like jokingly, like either you need to, duplicate yourself or like maybe come up with some kind of courses or something like that, like write a book.
Mm-hmm.
And what she was saying is that you should write a book. And I was like, I wonder if I can duplicate myself. And
Yeah.
and this goes to the idea that I'm something special, which people think I'm special, but I don't think I'm that special. And so the more special I am, the harder it is to duplicate myself. But the real question is, because I did feel like, so the reason we started the coaching program is because I started on stream, and what I really wanted to show people. So the reason we started streaming was because I was having individual conversations with gamers for like 4 years, and it was like the same 35 like problem points,
Yeah.
like 35 problems that pretty much all gamers, like any given gamer is going to fall into, like 99% of them are going to fall into these like 35 issues. So my
Mm-hmm.
thought was like, I'm having the same fucking conversation with like a dozen people. What if I just stream that conversation? Could people watching benefit?
Mm-hmm.
Turns out that the answer is like sort of yes. Then the question is like, but we want one-on-one. And I'm like, can I really transform someone's life by streaming? Some people will actually say yes. I still tend to be pretty skeptical. And I find that it's like hard to substitute one-on-one support with like
Mm-hmm.
YouTube videos, even if the topics are the
Remember,
same.
don't ever underestimate the impact you can have on somebody. But
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So I've learned that.
yeah.
But then my thought was like, okay, so what's missing from Healthy Gamer? Sure, I can go on stream and I can have these conversations and I can teach about stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But what's missing is one-on-one, and that's why we started coaching.
Sure.
Now, the interesting thing there are deficiencies that have come out of coaching, which is that like people want, so like they want more in depth than what we can offer on stream, and the coaches have a skill set, but they don't have my knowledge base. So the next thing that we're working on a Healthy Gamer is like, can you hold on a second? I'll just show you.
Yeah.
So So what I basically noticed is that like people are asking for more in-depth stuff about meditation, or more in-depth stuff about Ayurveda, or like more in-depth stuff about like alexithymia and getting in touch with your emotions. So and the coaches are actually really helpful, and they're good outcomes from our coaching program. But they don't have the depth of knowledge, which actually people are sort of ask us to stream about stuff. Where now the problem that we're running into is I don't think streaming is the best way to disseminate. Hold on. Is the best way to disseminate like comprehensive knowledge. Does that make sense?
Sure, because you can't be responsive to like individual like questions, or because you have to break things down on an individual level for somebody to understand, or
Because my understanding is that streaming people jump in and out. So
oh, okay, okay.
let's do this. So we're gonna go. Okay. So I'm gonna maximize this. Share my screen. Okay. Okay. Can you see this?
Um I'm gonna click something to watch stream. Yes. Okay.
Can you see the Word doc?
Yeah.
So like, so the next thing for Healthy Gamer is this.
Mhm.
So this is like essentially the outline of a book about meditation.
Mhm.
And so this is like what's come out from our coaching program is that people want more. Let me try to find just one example. Yeah, so let's do like the anxiety primer. So like this is just like my understanding of anxiety and all the different kinds of anxiety that people can experience. And this is what our community needs next. So first it was streaming, then it was like, okay, people need one-on-one. And then people like our coaches can help them with ego, but they don't have quite the depth of knowledge about how to like the know-how of how to remove ego. They can actually help. They're actually pretty good with ego. And so like this is what's next. And you know, where does it end up? I'm not quite sure, to be honest.
Okay.
Because I just don't know. I mean, I'm going to try to help. So the other thing when it comes to dharma or duty is like it occurs to me that I have so you know, when you think about karma and dharma, so to kind of tie things up. So I think I was given a very unique set of circumstances in life, and I think that with ability comes responsibility. And it was weird. I was talking to like this guy named Bobby Scar, and he was kind of saying like, I predicted someone like you would show up on Twitch one day. He was like, I called it.
Okay.
And I think that there's a group. So what Healthy Gamer is about is it's about healthy gamers. So it's not actually about like treating video game addiction. It's about like building a healthy life. This is what we've been talking about. There's a difference between mental illness and like building happiness and fulfillment. And that's really what our goals are as an organization.
Yeah, it's like the difference between going to a hospital and being sent out when you're no longer dying versus actually like working out, exercising, having like a healthy body. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I think the thing that's been really confusing from an organization standpoint or a stream standpoint is people, because I talk about emotions, they assume that that's therapy. But no, like I think that's the fucking problem with our society is that we don't have these conversations about relationships. We don't have conversations about emotions. You were kind of saying we weren't taught how to be happy. Absolutely. That's what I'm trying to fix. Is we weren't taught how to like gain meaning and purpose in life. We weren't taught how we as human beings work. We have classes about science and mathematics and economics, but nothing about why you can't stop drinking soda. And so what our mission is just to help people put their lives together and to become healthy gamers. Right. And I don't want, like, I'm not really for abstinence from video games. I think it's necessary for some people and certainly for some period of time. But like, we want to build healthy gamers. And when there are enough healthy gamers, I guess at some point I'm going to burn out or quit. But generally
You'll probably
speaking,
be working for a while, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know, so I'm just going to try to help people. So I think I kind of view our organization and where it's going in the same way that I think about, because it's the only way you can do it mentally and stay sane. When I'm working in the emergency room, it's like, what's my end goal? I have no fucking clue. It depends on what walks in the door.
Sure.
And as long as people are walking in the door and asking us to do stuff, we're going to do our best to do it.
Okay. I don't know how many questions I've asked you. You've gone over on stream a million times, so I'm sorry if I'm hitting a lot of like common talking points. I guess just like a final question then, so we draw to an end here.
Sure.
Because a lot of people in my audience might be listening that haven't heard these things before. In terms of if you have like new people listening, what do you think is like the most positive thing an individual can do to make like great strides towards becoming mentally healthier that you think most people don't already do? Like what's like one thing that you think is missing from a lot of Twitch audience's life that they could be doing that would help them greatly?
I mean, I have a generic answer and then I have a specific answer because I feel like the generic answer is like not actionable, which frustrates me. So the generic answer is I think you should understand yourself in the same way that you try to understand external things. So in your audience in particular, so Destiny, I think you've cultivated a good audience or attitude or culture of like critical thinking. The problem is that we don't critically think about ourselves.
Yeah.
Practically, what I would say is that a lot of people, I suspect, in your audience think they think critically about themselves.
Yeah.
Right? But the truth is that they don't. So here's what I'd say.
Hmm.
A classic example of this is like the gamer who feels like they're in control of their emotions because they don't cry during a sad movie or can watch horror films or things like that, right?
Hmm.
Like they don't have emotional responses the way that other people do. And they pride
Hmm.
themselves on this. That's not
Yeah.
being in control of your emotions.
Hmm.
That's just numbing your emotions. So practically what I would, if I had to give someone a practical tip, it's look at your behavior and try to figure out what are the different variables that influence your behavior. And unless you can do something arbitrary for no reason, you're not in control of yourself.
Hmm.
So if people think that you're in control of yourself and you can't pick, the last thing that you ate that was unhealthy, unless you can knock that out of your diet for 60 days, you're not in control.
Hmm.
And then tunnel down into what is it that contributes to behavior, because behavior is really, really complicated. A lot of
Yeah.
variables. And understand your behavior and understand yourself. And for people who want to be successful, I don't think they understand. Like everyone looks for success outside of themselves. They're like, you've
Hmm.
got to do this, or like, I remember there was some guy on YouTube that was spamming, maybe due to my search history or cookies or whatever, about how
Yeah.
he like reads 1,000 books. And I'm like, I don't think reading, like we all think that reading 1,000 books makes you successful. Like, sure, reading is important. I've read a fuck ton of books. But I don't believe that success comes from doing some specific formula externally. I think you just got to understand like how you work as a person.
Hmm.
And I think that's what people need to like take away is like understand how you work. Because we're playing this game of life without understanding the buttons on the controller.
Yeah.